Welcome to the Meet at the Creek podcast, and I'm your host, Pastor James Jeffrey. If you have questions or comments, send them to mudcreekpastor@gmail.com. That's mudcreekpastor@gmail.com. Meet at the Creek, sermons, discussions, and real talk. Let's get into it. All right, Coach, what does it feel like to have a WWF intro?
I like it. Brings back memories of late 90s.
I heard that, my man. I heard that. Well, guys, welcome into the Meet at the Creek podcast. I'm your host, Pastor James Jeffrey, joined alongside tonight Section Lines Varsity Boys basketball coach, the head basketball coach, and state champion coach, might I add, Coach Derek Wynn. Coach, good to have you on tonight.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to be here. Just right fast like, let me just take care of some housekeeping right here with my audience. I know some of you are still joining. I see 10, 11 folks there. Hello, Brother Patrick. Good to have you join in with us tonight. You guys that are watching, please do us a favor, like and share the broadcast so that it can get out right fast, and it helps us beat the Facebook algorithm because they don't seem to like when I go live. I don't know what it is about my page in particular, but it's something about being the sexiest fat boy alive, Coach. They're just jealous, I reckon. I don't know what it is. All jokes aside, guys, do like and share and get this out to as many as possible. The purpose of the podcast, for those of you that have just maybe tuning us in for the first or second time, I hadn't gone over it in just quite a while, but I interview everybody. I'm really not ashamed to interview anybody. The Lord knows I'm not, because I've interviewed, Republicans and Democrats, and I've interviewed, Baptists and Pentecostals and just all kinds. I love talking to people. So I try to stay away from, hot button things. Probably the fuzziest it ever got was when AJ was on the show. And AJ actually was, he poked his chest out and went big boy on us, and he was answering all the questions. If they got asked, he answered it. And I was just blown away, just how transparent and that he was about things. But I'm not going to do you that way tonight, Coach.
It's hard to beat AJ. He's a good one, and somebody I've got a lot of respect for.
Yeah, he does a great job at what he does, and it's just his attitude about his approach to not only his job, but just the society, just people in general. He's just a people caring person. He loves people, loves the community, he loves what he does, and I really appreciate that. Dustin Henshaw said, "Hey, Coach," and "Hey, Brother James." Dustin, appreciate you listening.
There, preach.
Yeah, he's coaching now.
Yeah, I saw that.
Out at Cornerstone, defensive coordinator, strength and conditioning coach. I think he's athletic director, vice principal, just an extraordinaire. Richard Murphy says, "Coach Wynn on the big stage." Man, hey, you're going to make me popular, Coach. It's great. Hey. All right. It's good to have everybody listening. So y'all, if you hadn't liked and shared the podcast already, please go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and jump on in tonight and get started. So Coach, when I started doing this, my very first live guest that I ever had, I was doing it in my house, and I'd just call people on the phone and do phone interviews, and that was cool.
Right.
But one night I did a show with Mark Moon and Nathaniel Bates. And because Mark Moon's the sheriff of Blount County. He also pastors a church down there. And Nathaniel pastors a church here. He's a deputy sheriff over in DeKalb County. And Craig, obviously, deputy here. He don't pastor, but he thinks he does. Anyhow, I had Craig in the house with me. And even though they made fun of us, a lot of folks they called us Big Enos and Little Enos, stuff like that. They had a lot of fun at our expense. And I'm good with that. It's hilarious. But having somebody actually sitting there with me was more fun than I anticipated.
Right.
So I told Greg when it was over, I said, I think I'm gonna try to move this from the house up to the church and invite people to come and just hang out and just talk and I'm not just gonna have preachers on. I'm just not gonna do religious talk. We want to talk about life, talk about leadership, talk about just people's careers and their backgrounds and their history and kind of how they do things and why they do things. So that's the kind of stuff that we've really been talking about. And I tell you, I have discovered so much just listening to these other folks talk. Everybody's style is a little bit different, but they generally have just like there's always seems like it goes back to this certain set of values, just core values, baseline. Everybody has the same starting point, I guess.
Right.
When it gets right down to where the rubber meets the road, they share a lot of things in common, but how they go about it from there is different. So, tell the folks that may not know you, and there's probably some on here who don't. I know there are some who do. There's probably some who don't know you. Just who you are, where you came from, where you went to school, what you did, how you got to be where you're at.
Well, me and Whitney, my wife Whitney, we were joking about. That's the biggest question I struggle with is talking about myself. Graduated from Section High School, went to Jacksonville State, then got a chance to come back and coach at Section and teach fourth grade, and then got an opportunity from Chad Gorham to go to Skyline to be the head boys basketball coach there, and had some success there. Didn't do as well as I wanted to, but I was first year head coach, 2 or 3 years there, and then got a chance to come to Scottsboro, be the girls coach, and left there when the opportunity arose to go back home and be the head boys basketball coach at Section and get a chance to coach my boys one day, hopefully, and so that's where we're at now. Married to Whitney Ballard, the legend of Pisgah basketball, what I call her, and got 2 boys, Ellis and Rustin, and they're 12 and 7. So into sports and hanging out on the farm.
I heard that, and but you went to school in Scottsboro for a short period of time.
Yeah, I did. I actually went K through 6. Went with McNutt and Jeff Cuthbertson and Don Webb and all them guys. And we had a real close group. And Mom's from Scottsboro, and grew up in Scottsboro. And my dad's from Section, from the mountains. So he had a chance and finally talked my mom into making the move. I think I got a 4-wheeler out of it.
Yeah.
My brother got a mule, not a side by side, a 4-legged mule. Yeah. And Mom got a house eventually. So we all got something just so he could get back on the mountain, and was able to go to Section and start my 7th grade year.
That's awesome. I think my mom told me before she passed away, your name came up one time, and she said that you used to ride her school bus.
She was my school bus driver.
That's awesome, man.
Colony.
I think you're the first person that I've interviewed that it was actually, connected to her as a student who, rode her bus.
Right.
And what was that like, man? Because, she made me ride it until the 6th grade, but I always had a different perspective about my mom.
Right.
I couldn't wait to get on another school bus.
Yeah. It's hard to get away with stuff, and mom's done it. But, I don't remember anything bad about it. You didn't want to get caught in the back. You was a young guy, so you want to be up front where she could at least keep an eye on you.
Yeah.
And I remember she always would. But yeah, grew up in Goosebump County and beside the Millers, Danny and Brent and that bunch. So Joey, and we had a good time down there.
And I grew up down there too, obviously, and I'm familiar with all those boys and the Putmans. The stories they lived down there. The Gabe Jones lived down the street. Travis Haynes. There was or not Haynes. I can't remember his last name now. It's escaped my mind. I was thinking about him just the other day. He lived right next door to Gabe, but big Jason Arnold lived down there. There was just a slew of people.
Yeah, Lance Perry Wright.
Yeah.
You could find a ball game or whatever
Yeah.
season it was, you could find something to play.
Al Bibbs, lived out the end of Canadian. The Pattersons lived over in the Circle.
Yeah. Heath and Randy Phillips lived there for a minute.
Yeah,
They
and
lived across the road from us.
The Gross kids lived down there. The Gross boys. Zaff, the Zaffs, I think, lived down in there. Heath has got a boy that plays baseball at Buckhorn now.
Okay.
And he's a pretty good ball player too.
Heath was good.
If he hadn't graduated already. But it just so many people came out of that little community, our age. And I'm on a Facebook group called Goose Pond Memories.
Yep, I'm on it too.
Are you on there?
Yeah.
So you saw they were posting about trying to rent the pavilion for a reunion?
Trying to get a reunion back.
Lord, we'll sink another homemade pontoon if we go down. I don't know how many people remember that, but man, we used to get in all kinds of mess. But those were days, Derek, where we kind of, we left our doors open. We left stuff unlocked.
Yeah.
We could stay out past the street lights coming on, and our parents, they knew we were together. They weren't worried about us. If somebody caught us doing something, they had,
Yeah, you might get a whipping. It might not be from mom and dad.
Exactly.
Everybody had the right to discipline.
Yeah.
And
they really did, and we all knew it too.
Yeah, and that's we turned out okay. I feel like.
Yeah, there's value in community that I think people have lost, and I think that's one of the reasons, as I got older, that I ventured towards athletics. I didn't really care much about sports growing up. I split time between Goose Pond and Mud Creek, Alabama. I lived the other half of my life, I call it, right over here, just on this side of the creek with my grandparents or my great-grandparents. And so I had a group of friends up here, too, that I was real close to. It was a little bit different up here because we were more spread out,
right.
So you didn't get to be together. You was just one friend at a time, you get on the wagon, ride the tractor over to Fackler or, up here to Stevenson or over in Wanville or down Hollywood, something like that, and they'd go and visit. You'd be there all day.
Mm-hmm.
And the people would come to visit you. They'd be there all day.
And you'd have to find something to do.
Yes. And so, we turned cow pastures into, football fields and baseball fields and just dodged the patties and, just anything and everything you could think about doing. But that's where I developed a love for basketball because we always had a basketball goal around close. And that was a game that you could play without, getting too dirty, just be real sweaty.
Yeah.
But now if the old guys decided they want to get in there and teach the young guys a lesson, you get dirty.
Right.
They elbow you, knock you down, make you tough. But they taught you how, they taught you how to play in a way where you weren't afraid to be physical. You weren't afraid to be competitive. I was afraid of them.
Right. But you couldn't show it.
Yeah. But you just had to be tough. No blood, no foul. It's just kind of the way it was.
I'm going to tell mom and daddy and nobody about it.
No.
Just take it and
move on. What happened to you? Your mom come back. Mom, what happened to you?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I got hit. Maybe I missed the ball. I don't know. Nose broke. Just
right.
Those kind of things happen. But, I look back now, the way we grew up, we learned so many lessons, as kids. And we thought we had it hard, but really we had it we had it really good. Life was simple. You just go out and get in trouble, but don't die.
Right. Well, and it's not plastered all over social media and all that stuff, and the good thing about going home is, a lot of those guys I graduated with and girls too, that you get to bring back memories,
right.
And there's not a video of anything.
Right.
You didn't have videos, but to sit there and talk about senior year, homecoming week,
mm-hmm.
And go on about how crazy, we were and stuff. But, that's one thing about going back is it was tight knit here, but, when we went and moved to the mountain, we had a really close group of boys. My well, that would have been my 7th grade year and that 8th grade year, and we were together a lot, and you played ball because that was your social life too. You know, you couldn't go get on the computer or look at your phone. If you wanted to be with somebody, you went to a ball game or you played ball, one of the two. And, you just form a lot of relationships like that are lifelong.
Yeah, and I remember I was talking to Brad Dudley about this last week. When I was in high school, they used to open Carter Gym up twice a week at nighttime, and guys would come from everywhere.
Right.
People would come down from Section, Woodville, Stevenson. I mean, people would come from everywhere to play, and it was just pickup games. Coaches didn't get involved; they just sat up high and watched and just kept order and control. But they always wanted us to play on the same team, and they wanted us to, it was unspoken. But this is the time we don't care if you win or lose these games. That's not important. Practice your offense. Practice your defense. That's the reason they opened it up and just let people come.
Right.
And we learned to challenge ourselves. There was so many lessons that you just picked up just playing. And I wasn't great. I'm not trying to make anybody think I was any good because I wasn't. I sat on the bench more than I ever got in the game, but I learned as much in practice about how to be just a man and how to grow up and conduct yourself, out in society than I ever would in a ball game.
Yeah.
It's behind the scenes stuff.
Right. And I can remember my first junior high practice. There was an 8th grader who I wasn't a point guard, but my coach thought I was, so I was point guard. And the 8th grade point guard was just eating my lunch. I mean, he was just killing me.
Yeah.
Start, tearing up. What are you going to do? You going to sit here and cry or, and he made me a better player. At the time, I didn't know it. And now we're still best friends to this day.
Right.
But, you were challenged and the coach challenged you and mom and daddy didn't say nothing. You just deal with it and figure it out. How you going to handle it?
Absolutely. Now, those are, I had Kenny, on the show here. I was a couple months back.
Oh yeah,
and
I caught it.
The one, did you see?
Oh yeah,
good.
You can't turn down an opportunity to listen to Kenny, and especially with Brooke on here.
Oh yeah, man. She didn't hardly get to talk.
I noticed.
I think a lot of people found out that night that I could rap. Me and Kenny was
Right.
rapping at the beginning. It was pretty fun. We went all the way back to the Ghetto Boys. Oh man, these kids today don't know anything.
No.
He came up, as I was kind of going out, he was coming in. But the year before I graduated, LeBron Kraft was a year ahead of me. And he was just a different kind of player. He was like you described it. I remember Coach Kirkland used to put me on him in practice. He had these drills, where you just to make you a better defensive player.
Right.
I was slow and big, and I didn't have a lot of speed, and I never understood why he made me every single day line up and try to guard him. I'm like, Coach, this is not realistic.
Right.
I'm never going to be in the game. Number one. If I am in the game, I'm not going to be on somebody with this kind of talent. But you know what I found out about that years down the road is that you never know what kind of situation you're going to be in life.
Right.
And you may not consistently be in a situation like that, but you might be in a situation someday where you are outmatched, where the guy's going to be bigger, stronger, faster, better, whatever. But if you've been in that situation before, you're at least not going to be afraid.
Right.
And you at least you can almost outflank somebody if you're expecting it,
Yeah.
And I found that out years and years and years. It took me months and months and months of having to line up on him every single day and get my butt blistered. I started cutting him off. I started recognizing his tendencies. I started paying attention. And so now when I tell these athletes that I get to be around on a regular basis, pay attention in the film room.
Right.
Look for those things. We didn't have film. So it was just you line up on these guys every day. Well, not everybody was paper. Coach knew that too. The guys I was going to be facing weren't going to be as talented.
Right.
They weren't going to be able to move that way, So he was really he didn't do LeBron any favors. He did me a lot of favors, and I appreciated that. It took a long time for me to understand what he was doing, but man, he knew, and I've understood that now about most coaches. They recognize, you know, who can take it, who can't take it, who wants it, who don't want it, and you know, you gonna do it or you just gonna stand there and cry? You know?
You wouldn't have picked to guard him.
No.
So coach had to make that happen, you know.
Absolutely.
So, and most of the time, you know, coaches are going to put you in situations where you can either fail or succeed. You know, sometimes players need to fail, you know, before you can get them on the right path to where they can succeed and be successful. But, you know, believe it or not, coaches want what's best for their guys, you know, or girls. And, you know, not everybody, you know, like I told Whitney too, I got to be careful not to put my foot in my mouth. But
go ahead, coach. It'll be all right.
but I mean, that's a coach's job. You know, is to make the hard decisions, put guys in situations where they can be successful, and if guys aren't doing that, then do they want what's best for the team,
right,
for everybody?
Had a comment on here. Amanda Summerford says, "Hey Tater," with exclamation points. Hello, Amanda. She said, "Coach Wynn coaches my oldest son, Caleb." And Lord, I think I haven't seen Amanda or Heath, and Heath came here one time. It's been a hot minute. Amanda was supposed to come with him, didn't come. But anyway, I'm not calling you out or anything.
Right under the bus. Yeah, Caleb's a good one. He's a ninth grader for us, and good dude. Going to be a good player.
Well, I know this much, man. They got a good coach, and a lot of people don't know. You know, I had the good fortune to be in the radio guy, helping Greg Bell, the master, the goat of local high school sports. But as far as radio goes, anyway, you know, I got to help him for a long time. I learned a lot more about probably the humanity of the sport. You know, I didn't even know about it, and I played the game. And I learned more about the game from him, just his passion and just his love for the game. But when you came along, I don't know what it was particularly about you that it seemed like he had a very easy time talking to you. And not that he has struggles with anybody, because Greg's got the gift of gab. You know, he can carry on a conversation with an oak tree. But you know, I always said you two had an ability to just kind of go back and forth. The questions were natural, they were very easy, but he had a really good relationship, you know, working relationship with you.
A lot of that's him. I mean, and like I said, he's a master of his craft for sure, and takes pride in it. And guys like that, it's easy to talk to.
Yeah.
You know, when you know they're doing what they want to do for a living, and they take pride in it. You know, it's easy to talk to. You know, and we did go on back and forth, and I can remember some where, I mean, we were atrocious from the free throw line and on the three, and just one of them, "Hey, Coach, did y'all even practice in this gym today?" And
I was about to bring it up.
Yeah,
I wasn't going to do it if you weren't going to do it.
And I think that sent me on a rant, not at him, but it sent me just on a rant. You know, shocker there, but. You know, and he come in and apologized to the girls. He called me and apologized. I said, "Greg, you're telling the truth. Like, why you apologize? Don't apologize for telling the truth." He said, "Well, I owe it to the girls." Next day after practice, he come in and apologized to the girls. They had no clue what he was talking about.
Yeah. Well, you know what was funny about that, like that happened on I think the actual game happened on a Tuesday night or Monday or Tuesday. And then you guys played at DAR. And we came out to do the game, and we couldn't get on the air because of the cell signal in the gym. And we were standing down the lobby talking before the game, and you were actually saying that stuff that he had just said, but he didn't know he was on the air. Larry Scott.
That's what it was.
Well, I thought he was going to choke Larry Scott.
That's what it was. I can't remember how it was.
It was on the TV cable. and they didn't edit it out. Somebody did not, vet the thing, and Larry forgot to cut the audio.
Okay.
And I'll never forget. It was the greatest thing. Robbie Copenhaver called me the next morning. Thank God when I didn't open my mouth, because I'll tell you, it was not that it was just bad. It was just.
Well, I'm talking about the shooting was bad, not
Well,
what Greg said.
here's the
was bad.
thing
I'm
about
talking
that, though,
the way
man.
We were shooting it.
That particular team, and it's something we talked about, and you even talked about it the following night, but then it didn't air until the next week. And that's when, it went. And one of the girls' dads is the one who saw it and, videoed it.
Yeah.
Started sending it around. And, whew. But Cope called me, and he's like, "Oh, we got you now." And he's running that head. I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I ain't said anything, And then he started saying what was said. I was like, "Oh, my God." I called Greg. He was on party line, so I had to wait till party line was over.
Yeah.
And I called him, and he's like, "Oh, no." And he felt so bad. But, and this is the part that people don't understand. It's like you can be frustrated as a coach, but you see the potential's there. That same group that was atrocious in one area was real good in another area. The next year, they improved in that area and were still just as good.
Yeah.
But defensively that year, that defense kept them in so many games, won them some games. You guys won some games you probably wouldn't have won. But, it's like you had that ability to see that we're not going to be able to do a lot here. But I never seen any coach a group of kids so aggressively on defense. It was like it reminded me of these defensive-minded football coaches. It's like you knew that was going to be your only chance to win, and you did that. And you coached to their strengths all year long to the very best of your ability. But the next year, boy, wow, those girls got really, really, really better. Yeah.
And that's a testament to them. They were just special, and you knew, like, they were sixth graders, and I'd go watch them play, and they were just special. They loved it, and you knew they were different, and they made it a point to be really good on defense. And when you can get guys and girls to understand that if you win the defensive side of the ball, you can win a lot of games. My biggest philosophy on that is I'll run a few sets and stuff. I'm going to let you play offense the way you want to play offense.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to do what I say on defense.
Right.
I'm going to give you that freedom on the offensive side of the ball, but defensive side of the ball is mine.
Right.
And if you can't do my side, then you're not going to play.
Yeah.
And that group was different. That 22 team, I think the most points they gave up in the postseason run was, it was like 50, probably 52.
It wasn't much.
It wasn't much, and they were just shutting guys down.
Yeah.
And we had a stopper. Caden Bradford was best defensive player. Next to Kiera, he's the best defensive player I've coached. And, he didn't care if he scored a basket. But the guy that he was guarding, he cared if he scored a basket. He'd be standing up beside me because I'd take him out. We'd be up 30. Mm-hmm. And he's up coaching his tail off, trying to get these guys to get stops. Don't let that guy score.
I remember when, the Chicago Bulls were on their run, and Michael Jordan, kind of went out and forced the Bulls to bring in Dennis Rodman. I think even Scottie Pippen hated Dennis Rodman. I
Jordan did too.
Yeah, but I think Jordan had that famous quote said, we don't need him to score points. We need those 20 rebounds a game.
Right.
And I remember seeing like a special or something where Phil Jackson said, MJ came and said, "Can you control him?" And he said, "Yeah, I think I can." He said, "Then let's get him." But Dennis Rodman said there was one weekend where he was just like he just checked out, and he flew to Las Vegas, and Michael Jordan had to come out there and get him and bring him back to play.
Yeah, but you got to have guys like that.
But he was an absolute dog, and he just didn't care. You know, I mean, he was willing to sacrifice everything to get a rebound. And you know, that you seem to have always one player on your team every season that manages somehow or another to find that.
Yeah, and when you can get that player, that's when you're really special. You know, and it doesn't happen every year. You can kind of see guys as they come up if they're going to be that person. The biggest thing, are they going to accept that role? Because that role's not popular anymore. Kate Bradford didn't get in the newspaper every night.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't get his name called on the radio and stuff because he wasn't doing anything, but he was winning us ball games.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not a popular thing for guys these days.
Right.
But if you can get a guy to buy into that, so just show that effort and give that effort night in and night out, you'll be successful.
Absolutely. Do you find it easier, you know, to coach if you just have one, maybe two of those guys, or is it easier to manage a team if you got several of them? You know,
I mean, it varies. You talking about scores or just
those kind of? I mean,
those effort guys?
Just those effort guys.
I
I mean,
don't
obviously,
want five of them. You're never going to score.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't need a bunch of them, but
Right.
you got to have it. You got to have one if you're going to be really good. If you got two, you know, but normally one works better because the defense can't you know, scheme against that against you. Like, I mean, a lot of times they would sit in the paint on Caden, and he would pass it, and then I'd jump him, and then the next time he'd shoot it. You know, you got to keep him honest, and he can make an open shot every now and again, but he knew that's not what he was out there for.
Right.
But you know, he just an unselfish guy. But no, I mean, you don't need a bunch of them because you got to get a bucket somewhere.
I heard that. I heard that. I've always heard that is, you know, you look around and and they always told me, every coach I've talked to said the same thing, whether it's on camera or off camera. I don't want a whole team of stars, and I don't want a whole team of effort guys. You know, you got to have
a good mix.
Got to have a good mix of guys, because
and if guys and girls both don't know their role, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're not going to win. I mean, those guys in 22 and even the Final 14 with Scottsboro, everybody knew their role. And wasn't somebody trying to do somebody else's job. You did your job to the best of your ability, and that's the way it was.
Absolutely.
You know, and everybody was a really good teammate, and it was just, it's a lot of fun when you get it going that way. You know, I don't have to say a whole lot when it's like that, and that's when you got really good teams. Is when coach ain't really saying a whole lot.
Yeah. Do you find is that something that you have to kind of develop in them, or is that something that just sort of comes out of them?
You can kind of tell the dog, you know, early. There was a deal with Caden. Moved him up on. He was a ninth grader. Moved him up on JV and Sam Mountain tournament. You know, we got beat, and I hadn't been there long. And actually, this was my first year. And he was putting his shoes on. And he had to go somewhere, you know, to go see his brother. His brother just got in from the military and stuff. I didn't know that. But when coach talks, you stop and you got eyes, you know. And me and him had words. And my assistant coach kind of stepped back because they was waiting on me to jump him. But I said what I had to say. He said what he had to say. I get the last word. But when we walk out in the hall, I told my assistant coaches, I said, that's going to be the dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying it's good to talk back to your coach. I'm just saying that we kind of knew early that he was going to be that guy. But, I mean, I think players take on coach's demeanor. If you coach hard, feel like kids play hard. And you do have to make them aware of what their role is going to be with this team. I mean, because can't everybody be the stud?
That's
you know?
right.
So you got to do that early, but most of the time you kind of get it figured out fairly early too. The kids kind of get it figured out early too.
Yeah. Do they? You know, how do they accept their role? I know, I'm sure things have changed, but it seems to me like the one thing that never changes in athletics or sports is this desire to be part of a team.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, in high school, we still hadn't arrived at the place full on where there's just front runners everywhere, even though there seem like there's getting to be more and more of them. But, in places like section where it's not as big, the community is still a community-based school.
Right.
I mean, what's it like there? I mean, it's just, do you find that most of your kids come in with that mentality where they're just happy to be part of the team and willing to do whatever's asked of them, or do they come in already kind of knowing, what they're going to do or where they're going to be before they get there?
I mean, you've got a mix. It is a basketball community, so I mean, they know good basketball. Everybody does, not just the kids. But there's sometimes you have to hurt some feelings, and you don't. I don't like being that guy, but somebody's got to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Because it ain't gonna come
Right.
from the house.
That's exactly right.
But I mean, and I always go back to the 22 year. We had 3 dudes that could get a bucket anytime they want to. But from January on, they were different. They shared the ball. Everybody got their points, and like one guy might be hot on Tuesday night. On Friday night, it might be a different guy. But they shared the ball and they made the extra pass when they were supposed to, and they just played basketball like it was supposed to. I think we won one game in December. We were selfish, wasn't playing stroke of defense, and we went to the Smokies, got beat 0-4. Played some really good teams up there, and we were close. And I tell Zach all the time, like, we're there, we're close. We just got to get over the hump. And come January, them dudes hit another gear, and it was like sit back and enjoy,
Right.
But it started on the defense side of the ball.
Yeah. I think sometimes just, I've been around high school sports about all my life, but I've been just involved in it from the media side for quite a while now. And I'm certainly not the expert, but I agree with what you said a minute ago. A lot of high school players I see it at North Jackson, doing what I do with the chaplain job there. I see it at Scottsboro, what I do with the basketball stuff there. These guys do become, over the course of the season, they start to look and act more and more and more like the head coach.
Yeah.
And if not the head coach, then they're usually close to one of the assistant coaches, and they act a lot like those guys. Right. So it's I almost dumped it in my lap. But it is that is a I never thought about it like that. But that really is something that's a wild thing to watch.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it, and it made me think about it. But that actually that's true. They really do that. Well, that'd scare me to death to think somebody's going to act like me. My wife's at home going, hey, man, we don't want anybody else acting like you. My daughter chimed in here a little bit ago and said that she hopes that you're still coaching when her kids, my grandchildren, get to high school, which you're the boys' coach. So I got a little boy, grandson Hudson. He just turned a year old. We're already trying to figure out how to get a basketball into his hands.
I've got pictures of Ellis, and he was young, and he was in the back seat. I was taking him to the daycare, and he was shooting ball. Of course, I'd have to catch it and throw it back while I was driving and stuff. But
yeah,
I mean, he was early. But yeah, got to start him young for sure.
Yeah, they and Naomi's 4. She just started Head Start this year, so they're living in Rainsville right now, but they're. They got plans eventually to move back this direction. Natalie's, I think they're just doing that, staying there because it's kind of halfway for them in their drives to work. But we obviously want them to be closer to us. But anyway, they got their heart set on kids coming to section eventually. So
no complaints. It's a special place to me, obviously, and the girls coach, me and him was really close, and we got a good thing going right now where everybody's on the same page, and add man down, everybody's on the same page, and it makes it special,
Yes, sir.
So,
My wife graduated from section, and back in 1993. So I'm
she
just
graduated Brian Jones.
yeah. She she was she wasn't an athletics person, and which has always kind of surprised me about her because she's very competitive. She hates to lose. She's just got that in her, but she never really was involved in sports. And our kids, believe it or not, never really got involved. We never told them they couldn't play. We just let them try whatever you want to try, and whatever you feel like you want to do. One chose volleyball, that and did a little, ended up being a wrestling cheerleader, and they both did that and really liked that. And then as as the future would have it, Natalie came along, and she liked to run, so she did float around with track and field, that kind of stuff. And then but then I don't know kind of what I was a sports guy myself. My mom was, well, you remember my mom, she was either, you're going to either have a job or you're going to play sports, and if she had her druthers, you'd do both. So I had both.
It was our rule at home.
I bagged groceries, and then I played ball. So I did school all day, went to ball practice. If I had a game, I did that. If I didn't have a game and practice was over, I was sacking groceries at Piggly Wiggly. And, Mom was sitting over in the flower shop giving me my ride back and forth. She made sure that I worked. It was, those were days that I look back on now, and I thought, man, I learned so much about, who I was going to become. I had no idea, during that stretch, that 4-year stretch of my life, so many things happened that shaped the course of my life. And I just missed it. I missed every bit of it. Didn't even realize it was happening to me.
Well, and you're not the only one. Like, I did the same thing. Everybody that's ever done that, has those thoughts. And me and Coach Haynes was talking today. We was passing out jerseys and stuff and going through things, and found his jersey, his high school jersey, and he made the comment, "I'd do it all over again tomorrow."
Yeah,
and I would too.
Oh, I think I would too.
Yeah, I'd go 9th grade up. Heck, I'd go 7th grade up. I just enjoyed it that much. And I had some good coaches, and some good guys to be around too. That makes a big difference.
Yeah. Now, where did you go to college at? You told me.
I went to Sneed for a year, and tried to do the baseball thing, and had shoulder surgery, and then went to Northeast, and then transferred to Jacksonville State.
So, what subject do you teach?
Now it's driver's ed and PE.
Oh,
But
so yeah.
my degree is elementary ed.
Okay. So you could do just about anything you want to do then.
Except for math.
Except for math. I have the same struggle. I'd have had my degree a long time ago if I could have been any kind of good at math.
Right.
I mean, I struggled to get through algebra 2, algebra 1 and 2. And then I did math 116. Went right out of that into pre-cal and bombed.
Makes me.
I mean, it was awful.
I can't handle it.
It was awful.
I started teaching driver's ed. I was PE, and that's the thing. Like when I went to Skyline to interview, I mean, I didn't want the job. Mm-hmm. We were sitting there about to have a play date, JV play date. I'm at section. We're about to play Skyline, and I get a phone call, and never answered my phone. But whatever reason, I answered the phone, and it was from this lady. Said that she'd been praying for me, and you need to take a Skyline job. And I said, I appreciate the prayers. Keep them coming, but that ain't happening.
Yeah.
So, anyways, the next day I'm up there interviewing, and I'm in gym shorts. We just got out of practice. No intention of taking a head coaching job. And Chad Gorham was the principal at the time, and he was going on about, the gym and stuff. And I said, so you talking about PE, or are we talking about an elementary spot? And he said, PE, dummy. And he coached me in football, so he could talk to me like that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, sign me up. Yeah, I'll do it. He said, you been for real? I said, if it's a PE job, sign me up. So that's actually how I got the Skyline job. And then doing driver's ed, I had to go to the 2-week class when I got to Scottsboro and do the driver's ed class, and that's how I actually got in on that. But I enjoy it. I like it.
I heard that. It's you know, I just remember those days. We had, you know, basketball coaches and football coaches. Seemed like they split time. You know, one had a classroom
Right.
during their off season, and
Yeah.
you know,
Me and Kenny got real close
Yeah.
doing that because you do. I mean, that's your sidekick, you
Mhm.
know, and we got really close doing that. And I think what's really cool about driver's ed is because everybody remembers a story from when they took driver's ed.
yeah.
So to know that I'm going to be in somebody's story 25 years down the road is pretty cool
Oh yeah.
to me.
Did you get to do all the brake checks and all that good stuff?
Yeah.
Those things are a lot of fun. So, you know, after you get out of college and you start working and you get these jobs, and then, you know, you progress from Skyline to Scottsboro out to section. Obviously you're back home, you're in your element, you're enjoying that. And you got your, you know, what you do while you're at school, all those things. So you transition out of that. What is life like for you outside of basketball? What does Coach Wynn enjoy doing when basketball's not in session?
Yeah. Well, about a year ago, Whitney and I bought a farm, and we've been remodeling and doing all that. And, you know, to me, it's just me and her getting on the gator and going to feed the chickens and going to feed the cats and making our circle around the pastures. And right now we're clearing fence rows and just doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, we love to be outside and being together, and that's the main thing for us.
Absolutely. So so now you can add farmer.
Well, yeah, we use
sorta.
that term loosely, you know, and it's fun to get the boys out there too, because, you know, just to expose them to that stuff. And what's sad is I was exposed to all that stuff too when I was growing up, but didn't want anything to do with it. And when I graduated high school, I actually started, you know, helping Coach McCarver,
Mhm.
you know, fool cows and stuff, and just loved it and
Yeah.
fell in love with that aspect of it, and always wanted to be able to do that one day. So we're progressing and trying to get there.
Hey, AJ Buckner finally tuned us in,
Finally
Coach,
woke
and he
up.
says, "Hello, preacher and coach." Finally, he got up out of the bed, I think, wiped him eye boogers, and
Yeah.
started paying attention. But we were actually talking about you, Mr. Buckner, here earlier, and so he's already getting some comments too. We appreciate you tuning in. So, you know, how easy is it for you to turn off? I know after a game, it doesn't matter what I do anymore. I get all worked up while the game's going on.
Yeah.
But when I'm on the sideline, you know, when we're away at North Jackson, I stay on the sideline with the guys. Jeez, I'm glad on away games that I kind of drive myself, because I have to have time to calm down
Yeah, I understand.
before I get. But you know, I have a different role. But it's not the same, but it is similar to a coach's role. I have to kind of get in.
It's emotional.
Yes, I have to kind of get in the zone. I have to be prepared to do this, say this. I mean, I have a job that I have to do that I'm kind of expected to do while I'm there, when I'm out there with them. But I do get I find myself, I get caught up in it just like any other coach would get caught up in it. And, you know, when the game's over, I don't have kids to come home to anymore. My wife's already asleep when I come in the house. So the dog has to sit there and endure,
Right.
you know, all my whatever I got to get off my chest so I can wind down. What is that like for a head coach?
I mean, personally, it's 2 a.m. You know, finally, I'll close my eyes around 2 a.m. But like I said, I mean, you're just amped up, still amped up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're coaching girls, you actually have the boys' game to kind of start settling you down and stuff, and it wasn't as bad. But, you know, playing the late game, and most of the time it's, you know, you're finishing up around 9:30, 10 o'clock. And it's just, you know, it's about 2 a.m. every time. Doesn't matter if it's Tuesday or Friday, but, you know, and I would like to think it's easier now than it was, but I don't know if it was or is. I know used to I'd be so tore up out of practice, you know, when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
to to where I'd still be tore up when I'd get home, and but I don't feel like I do that anymore. I kind of leave it at the gym,
Yeah.
And I tell my guys all the time, I'm going to get on you. I'm going to ride you. I'm going whatever I got to do to make you go hard and do what you're supposed to do and be disciplined. But when I walk out this door, I'm done with it. And if you're still mad about it tomorrow, you need to come have a conversation with me. Just because I've already forgot about it. Like I've moved on, I mean, I'm in the moment, and you try to get players to understand, like when you're in between them lines, you're a different guy than when you're every day, and I really, I feel like that's what I do. I'm different in between the lines than when I'm out and about. I'm not I'm a quiet guy. I don't say a whole lot, but I act a fool when I coach.
Yeah.
I don't understand that, but it's just I got to switch, I guess. But
I never thought you acted a fool. I never saw any. I've seen some colorful. Kenny, I told Kenny, he's one of the most colorful sideline. I love to watch him on the sideline because you never know what's about to happen. I mean, it's. We joked about it when he went to Gunnersville. The year before he went down there, he was throwing chairs out on the, the floor, getting technical fouls.
Yeah.
I mean, our fans are getting tossed and all that stuff. He even thought it was a joke when they, when they called him, and it's just like it, because of how that relationship was. It was, but Kenny was a whole lot of fun to watch. I always said Coach Bell, Jason, when he was at Plainview, I can remember going out there watching him, coach out there. It seemed like he jumped 8 or 10 feet off the ground, I thought, man, that dude is going to have a stroke. He's going to have a heart stroke just right over there on the sideline and die. Just show us the world. It was so fun, but I played for Coach Kirkland, and Coach Kirkland hardly ever, when I was playing for him, he's still that way all the way up to the end of his career. He just didn't show it. You reminded me a whole lot of him, your demeanor during the game, because you do this a lot.
Right.
And and I hated when he did that, especially when he looked at me. But it was one of those things where I used to tell Greg all the time, I'm like, this Derek's got a bright future ahead of him somewhere because he's really demeanored that way. And the guy may see this, and I don't care if he does. I mean, I like him all right enough, but we were in Fort Payne one night, and I won't never forget there was an official there who was doing everything he could do to pull just one word out of you where he could tee you up, and you never let him get you. And
that's a miracle in itself.
But you never let him get you. You knew he was wanting to do it. You know who I'm talking about too, I'm pretty sure. But
is that when he teed up Sparks instead?
Yes.
Oh, that was the best. I still give Coach Sparks a hard time over that. That was the best.
And I think that's a great guy too.
Oh,
I was blown away because
the referee's a great guy.
Yeah,
I really like him. And after that, me and him was, I joke around him about that all the time.
I teased him here. I think it was last year. I said, man, if I just jump up and slap you now and get it over with, just go ahead and get it out of the way where these coaches don't have to do it. He said, if you can go to prison if you want to, just 5 years. We have a lot of fun at these games.
But going back to Coach Sparks, he's a great guy too, a section guy, and a lot of respect for him. Very successful guy too, in everything he does.
And he's got another section guy over there helping him now.
Yeah.
Caleb.
I'm trying my best to get him too.
Yeah.
Coach Henshaw. Yeah.
I may or may not, have heard that already.
Yeah.
I plead the fifth on it.
Try my best. I'm going to get him.
Caleb's he's a fine young, and he's also got a great future as a
I'd
coach.
love to be able to coach that dude. I enjoyed watching him play and didn't like playing against him, but, enjoyed watching him play. And, of course, he's got good genes. Yeah. Good mom and daddy. So
we're going to give most of that credit to his mama. that's another, my son-in-law played on that team with them, Austin, and he, he has a lot of memories. I hear a lot. Just sit around sometimes, listen to him talk about the camaraderie that they shared, and how good of friends he still is with those guys, and they all had a lot of love and respect for each other.
Yeah,
and
Final 14.
Yeah,
I mean they went and did it, and I don't know what it is, but it is something about that friendship. I played on back-to-back Final Fours, and all of us are just still so close.
Yeah.
And I mean we're not talking every day, and maybe not every month or two. But you pick up right where you left off when you do, see them, and just that friendship that you have with that group. I guess it helps, knowing your role we talked about and being unselfish and all that. It just makes it a lot easier, and it definitely makes it a lot easier on the coach.
Yeah. I told, Brad and I had a conversation, within a conversation here last week about, I was ready to quit. Coach Meeks had talked me into just coming out, and I just didn't feel like I was going to fit in. The guys didn't really know me. I didn't really know them. I was coming over from football. I'm built to play football, not basketball, but I always loved basketball. I was just never any good at it. But I needed basketball more than basketball needed me.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to have some guys like Brad, John Greer, Tubbs, and Coach Kirkland and even Coach Vincent, who came in later. I was fortunate to have guys who could see that about me.
Right.
Kelsey Scott was a guy who played, and Kelsey encouraged me a whole lot. When we were in school, not to quit. He would always just say, I'd say, man, I just terrible. I ain't no good. I feel like I'm not any help to the team.
Right.
Just in the way more than I'm helping. And he would always say, well, work harder. Try harder. I'm like, dude, I practice more than you practice.
Right.
But you have a natural gift and I don't, But those guys they always found a way to rally around me, to make me feel part of the team, like I belonged. And I've never forgotten that.
Right.
I really never have.
Yeah. And you got to have guys like that, because I mean it's not easy.
Yeah.
I mean we had it's first day of practice 2 days ago, not yesterday, and we had a rough start.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have those guys that's picking you up, then it's very easy to crumble for sure. Because basketball, football, or anything, if you're doing it right, in my opinion, it's not going to be easy.
Right.
In
the military, they always said these first 2 weeks is to destroy you.
Yeah, and
we have to level you so that we can build you back up the way you need to be. Yeah. I thought, boy, I don't know. I just don't know. But that actually worked.
I feel like there's something to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it is what it is. It's not that you're weeding anything out. It's just that they got to know who the dog is, the real dog. And you just got to break them down so you can build them back. And I feel like, and that's what I told them today at the end of practice. I feel like, I've been pretty successful in what I've done, and either get with it or don't. But we're gonna roll. So most of my guys, though, they're pretty. We got to get better mentally. I've noticed already past 2 days, and like I said, most of my guys, my varsity guys, are playing football right now. So it's really good that I get to deal with the ninth and the JV guys more, and kind of develop that group and be around that group,
mm-hmm.
and they get to learn me, and that's past 2 days I've really enjoyed. They may not think it, but I've really enjoyed being around those guys.
Yeah.
But they really get to see a Coach Wynn practice, and
mm-hmm.
it's not going to be the easiest thing they've ever done.
Oh, no.
But
I can remember when we first got to downrange, we called it Fort Benning, which they've changed the name of the place now. But the very first morning that we went out to run, I could not keep up, and I had done some running, in my life. I love to run, matter of fact, and it was something I enjoyed. That part of basketball was the actual running.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that more than doing any other drill we did. Because I always felt like I was a pretty good runner, but I had never ran like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was just so somebody screaming at me the entire. I was used to put 45 minutes on the clock and you just run until the buzzer sounds. Just run, run, run. You had to keep up with everybody else.
Yeah.
I thought, well, this would be easy running in formation kind of thing. Absolutely not. The slow guys went to the front of the formation, and the fast guys were behind you, and they would push you.
Yeah.
And I mean, literally, put their hands in your back and push you, and you would run faster, or you'd get trampled.
Right.
So, I thought, I'll never forget that very first morning. I had a drill sergeant he was running backwards, screaming at us, and I'm over here about to have a cardiac arrest, and he said, "We run 6-minute miles in first platoon." And I couldn't even breathe, much less talk. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't know if you've looked at me, but I'm not capable of running a 6-minute mile. Before we left Fort Benning, Georgia, I ran a 4-minute, 58-second mile.
Wow.
But it was that type of energy every single day from these guys. They knew that I was capable of more than what I thought I was capable of. I always appreciate that about coaches. They could always have that knack of digging down in there. The good ones had that knack of just being able to, like you said just a minute ago, finding out who I was before I knew who I was.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wonderful thing. Do you find that you enjoy that part of it as much as, just maybe the mid to late season part of coaching? Do you enjoy the first part?
Yeah, I mean, you got to take it in phases for sure, or the grind will get you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy this part because we've been off.
Yeah.
About end of December and January is a grind.
Yeah.
And it was really hard at Scottsboro because you didn't have that county tournament to kind of propel you into area tournament.
Right.
So you kind of had to find something, a good game that you thought might kind of give you a bump. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The county tournament here in recent past has either made you or broke you, and that's what's good is because you can actually got something to look forward to. When it's January 3rd, it's hard to look for February 1 or February 2, whatever the area tournament starts. At least in January 3, you get to look at the Jackson County tournament and try to get that to get hot at the right time.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask a question that you don't have to answer.
Here we go.
You don't have to answer it if you don't. You just say I ain't going to answer it. What's the chances Scottsboro ever gets back in the county tournament?
I wouldn't mind it. I'll put it that way.
That's the best answer.
I mean, I wouldn't. Why not? Like,
I've heard.
I would have that game in 22 with Scottsboro's bunch and my bunch would have been a money maker.
Yeah,
we would have filled up Hambrick.
Yeah.
Or section
anywhere.
Yeah, I mean
that would have filled
imagine up. That county championship.
Von Braun probably was good.
It was. I don't know. I wouldn't mind it.
I know.
I know there's guys that would.
Yeah, and I don't know how many wouldn't, but I just kind of feel like probably the reason they're not in is there's just that many that wouldn't. I mean, Scottsboro has ups and downs too. They're not always great. They're not always bad, but it is a.
And I'll probably step on toes with it, but like when COVID hit, and it may have even been before that, but Dukes had called me, and he was like, "We think about playing it at Hambrick." I said, "Love it, but what's the catch?"
Yeah.
And he had talked with the mayor and got it all worked out to have it at Hambrick, get gate and concessions both. Like there was no catch. Like the city was going to get the benefit from all the county schools coming to Scottsboro, and they were just going to be the host. They weren't going to let them in or nothing like that. So we pitched the idea. It got shot down. But like to me, that's the best idea in the world. Why you wouldn't let you getting commission or you're getting admission, getting concessions, and the old timers at Skyline ain't gonna drive to Higdon or Section or Pisgah even, but they'll come to Scottsboro because they might get a burger on the way home.
Yeah.
You know.
And same
and
with,
my old timers,
same with the other places.
yeah, my old timers aren't going to go to Skyline on a dreary night when you can't even see, or Higdon, you know, but they'll drive Scottsboro. But it got shot down, you know, and there was no catch on it. You know, KD did all that work to try to make that happen, and you know we couldn't get it done. But I don't know. It is, I guess, it is what it is. But
well, at least I know there's somebody out there that would like to see it, and I know I would like to see it. I think it would be a lot of fun. I understand why they don't. But you guys also participate. Do y'all participate in the Sand Mountain tournament too?
we do,
don't you?
yeah.
What is that like? Because I know it's not just Jackson County teams. You know,
It's as a player, it's really, really fun as a player, and I've done both. As a coach, and I'm not the only coach, it's kind of a headache because you're playing these guys anyways in the regular season, and so if say us and Pisgah's pretty good, or North Saint and Pisgah's pretty good, well, if they're really good, they play in the regular season, they play in the Sand Mountain tournament, play in the county tournament, then you play area tournament. So you're playing 5 times before you even get to regionals. Then to go to Birmingham, you're probably playing 6.
yeah,
You know, my junior year we played Skyline 5 times, and the 5th time, first time we beat them 30. 5th time we had to hit a buzzer beater to go to Birmingham. You know,
yeah.
It's hard to beat a team that many times, and I think that's one of the issues with the Sand Mountain tournaments. You just play guys over and over again. You know,
yeah.
so.
I guess it's great for the players, great for the fans.
Yeah, fans enjoy it, and I think it's, you know, and like I said, I loved it as a player. You know, there's nothing better.
How much does the gate factor into some of these decisions, you think? Just to...
I don't know. We hosted last year, and then the year before we hosted the county. I mean, you make good money, but, I mean, I don't think, like, depends on what program you're running. Like,
yeah,
good programs are going to have money anyways, regardless if you're hosting the tournament or not.
yeah,
The issue is you can take those 2-3 games that you get in the Sand Mountain tournament and go to Huntsville or play somebody that's, you know, going to be some competition or try to get you better for the run. But, you know, it's one of them deals. It is what it is too. So,
yeah. Well, what does Coach like to do? I know you got your farm. Is there any other hobbies that you have that people wouldn't expect?
I'm a really boring guy.
Really boring guy.
I don't hunt. I don't fish. I can't golf.
I podcast. That's my hunting.
Right.
interest.
I can come on here and talk to you, I guess. But, you know, no, I really don't, you know, do anything. Basketball and, you know, hang out on the farm, I guess. But
It's the life right there, man.
I mean, I like it.
Got it. That's
The idea of fishing and hunting's always been really, really cool to me. Like the camo, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I love the thought of doing that. I don't want to get up at 5, 4, 3, nothing like that either. In the cold.
yeah. That's probably the reason I don't do it. I would enjoy fishing more than hunting.
Yeah, I think
I would be better at hunting than I am fishing, but I would enjoy fishing more.
I get into duck hunting. Me and a lot of my buddies at section, you know, during college and stuff, and before I started coaching. And once coaching hit, I had kind of squashed duck hunting.
Yeah.
And it's pretty expensive too. But, you know, the same way with golf. I like the idea, but I'm not good at it, so I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm not good at something, I really don't like doing stuff.
I heard that. So I have a few questions that I always ask people that are just random questions, but I think they tell us a lot about, they tell me a lot about myself. They tell me a lot about other people too, because you find out things that just little intricate questions that you just never would think to ask. If Coach Wynn could have only one meal for the rest of his life, what meal would that be?
Steak and sweet potato.
Hey, that's good.
It's got to be loaded though.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, that's good. If somebody wrote a book about you, what would the title of that book be?
Probably loyal. I feel like I'm a pretty loyal guy. Try to take pride in that, and I don't know, probably loyalty.
If you had to, if you could go, no, not if you had to, if you could go back in time and talk to 18-year-old Derek, what would you say to him?
Probably like we talked about earlier, is just enjoy the moment more. Probably put more work in. I think that's one thing too that you see now is guys that are not really putting that work in, but you can see that, man, if they did, they could be the real deal. But I was one of those guys that I got by off my athleticism most of the time. I wasn't the best out there. Didn't bother me if I was or not. But I was with my buddies.
Yeah.
So probably just that.
If you could name, you can obviously say as many as you want, but if you had to name three people outside of your parents, three people, the most influential people in your life growing up, who would it be?
My grandpa, probably Mutt Devers, was the one, and he always said, his biggest thing was take pride in what you do. No matter what you do, take pride in it. So he would be the one, because that's the one thing that I always, can hear him saying. And then probably my football and basketball coaches, Paul Ellis and Ronnie McCarver. I mean, those guys had two totally different styles, but got the job done, and were really successful in what they did. When I got out of college, I actually had a chance to go to Fort Payne and coach football, or come back to section and be with Ronnie, to do junior high and stuff, and even Glenn Hicks, asked me about going to Dade County, but just to have that opportunity to coach with either one of those guys, I couldn't have went wrong.
Yeah.
So
I remember when Coach Ellis was at section, I was doing some stuff. That was before I went to work with Greg, but I was still around football. I think I was writing articles for the North Jackson Progress and doing some other stuff. And I thought to myself, I don't know this guy, but he's a pretty good coach.
yeah.
Coach Ellis was a fine coach, and he got better. His team's always got better everywhere he went.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, he changed culture, for the little time he was there, on the football side of it. But also, he was a big supporter of basketball and what he did. And he wasn't a big supporter of basketball; he was a big supporter of us, as people.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ellis is named after him. So, I mean, he was really influential in my life, and somebody I owe a lot to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, if you had to tell a funny story on yourself, that's one thing. But if somebody else could tell a funny story on you, what do you think it would be?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm sure there's several. But like I said, I am a boring guy, really, what we always laugh about here recent, me and Whitney, and even anybody we talked to about it was, Coach Hart was with me for 5 years, and part of that run that we had, and didn't want to be a part of basketball to start with, but he started coming in the gym and would just hang out. He's a bachelor.
Yeah.
And a couple of days went by, and I was like, what's that dude doing back? And he's down there. Finally, like, I don't know. I said, get him a pad. Tell him to hit on them dudes. So I started putting him to work.
Yeah.
And before I know it, he's coaching the ninth grade boys basketball for me and sitting on the bench. And he'd never been a part of Sand Mountain basketball, you know. And it's different. The atmosphere is second to none. It's really fun, especially if both teams are really good. Us in North St. Mountain's always really fun when we really had some battles and stuff. But he would get into when I'd get tore out of frame or get teed up, he would get into just rubbing my back.
Yeah.
So we'd watch film and he'd be on rubbing my back. Caleb come up and Whitney's like, you understand, like, your job is to make sure he don't get tossed, and you got to rub his back when he sits down. And he's like, I'll make sure he don't get tossed, but rubbing the back is off. You know. And what's funny, we didn't even know he was doing it, you know, until we caught it on film.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I said, I'm a pretty boring guy.
Yeah. Oh, Coach, that's hilarious. We I really wish that down through the years I would have paid a little more.
He must be watching it.
He must be. He must be. Tell him to call my phone. I'll put him on the air. Coach Hart, if you're watching, 256-244-5372, I will put you on the air with Coach. We will make it happen, my man. You just call me. I'll get you squared away. Man, it's 256-244-5372, Coach. Come on now. If he's watching, I bet he ain't watching. We're on a little bit of a delay on the live feed. Let me think back now to what I was about to say. Oh man, I had a good thought too, and it's escaped me. I can't even remember what I was saying. Gee whiz. Well, it's not that important. Angie Bell said, "Hey Derek, hey Tater, the voice of the Wildcats just got home from the swim meet, so we are both listening." I bet Greg Bell has a funny story that he could probably tell.
I'm sure he's got.
I'm sure he's got a funny. I know he's got some funny ones on me, but we're not going to talk about any of those. I will say this: when you were coaching at Scottsboro, Coach Greg and I been together for a long time, doing games and just working around one another in and out of sports. We had a lot of conversation about, you know, there's always something that we backseat coach, I guess you could say. But there was some things that always seemed to happen that no matter what was going on, you know, it could be in the most serious moment of a basketball game. It's like me and him could look at one another, and he knew what I was thinking about, and I knew what he was thinking about, and we just bust out laughing. You know, it didn't matter how serious a moment it was. But it's just sometimes you have that. Yeah. Does that ever happen to you with another coach or with players, or, you know, do you ever find yourself just, you know, because you're obviously coaching these guys, you get one-on-one with them, right? You know, you don't just have, well, you know, I coach, but you know, you get to know them, you know about their lives, and they know about your life. Surely things happen that, you know, I mean,
and like I said, you know, me and Zach got really close, you know, over the 5 years, and we had plenty of those, you know. Yeah. Probably when I about got hit with a Dr. Pepper bottle, you know, I'm a North Central Mountain fan.
Oh, boy.
I mean, there's always something said in the stands that I don't really hear, but all of a sudden, for whatever reason, I hear that, and probably shouldn't have. You know, and you know, we get tickled about stuff like that because it really doesn't bother us. You know, we think it's funny, and but yeah, I mean, there's always something, and I think the more you're around guys or a guy or whoever, the more you kind of get that feel for them, and it's pretty special when you sit and think of it.
Yeah. Greg and I, you know, when he first started kicking around the idea of going out and doing covering some of the tournaments, I thought it was great. I had no idea, just how popular that was going to be.
Yeah.
It kind of, I guess you could say, it just sort of propelled him into local stardom.
Oh yeah.
With the county, schools and teams and fans. How big an impact does because I don't think Section has a full time. You don't got anybody that comes, and I don't think any of the other county schools do either, other than maybe North Jackson.
It's big. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I don't think people truly, and everybody says they do, but you truly don't understand what Scottsboro truly doesn't understand what they have until he ain't there no more.
Yeah.
And Greg, we're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody to find out any stats from the late '60s, or to see who's coming up on the scoring record at Section, and that would be a big deal. I mean, there's been a lot of good basketball that's gone through that school.
Yeah.
And to know who the rebounding leader is and all that and the scoring and all that stuff, I mean, that would be a big deal to know, and I miss that.
Mm-hmm.
I also miss being able to talk after the games,
Yeah.
To explain kind of what might have went through my head in certain situations, whether we missed and didn't look like we got any shots up in that gym before or what, but just having that connection with him was really special, and it's something that I miss daily, especially when basketball season gets here.
Yeah. Now, Miss Angie and Greg, since you're watching now, that means you weren't on earlier in the show. Just for the record, Derek said yes, they did practice in that gym.
Not that I liked it. I'd much rather practice in the auxiliary gym, actually.
So, Greg, you can respond with a text message or a phone call. Yeah. We'd be glad to take either one.
And the girls would get so mad because I wouldn't practice much and hammer if I could help it, just because I like the tight court where you could talk and actually communicate. But yeah, we would go in there and at least get a few shots up.
He's going to choke me. I mean, I might as well go ahead and get my marker ready for Pine Haven down there. He's going to choke me to death. Oh, goodness gracious.
Good.
Well, a lot of folks, I'll just take just a minute. I know you'd like to say something about it as well too, but this past year, look at here. Welcome to the show, Bingo.
What are you doing, knucklehead?
Hold on just a minute. I think I've got a sound effect on. Are you still there, Greg? I don't know what in the world's going on right there. I got this weird sound effect going on. I'll be John Brown. I don't know what I did. I've got a sound effect turned on that I can't get turned off. Man.
That's fine. I was just going to chat with you, Derek, for just a minute.
What about that voice?
It's throwing me off.
I'll tell you. It's again. That was throwing me off too. Well, Greg, if you can hear us, you can just send a text message or something too. He did. We would like to talk to you, but I don't know what I've done to this thing. I've got to figure out how to change that. I've got that dude set to a robot voice, and I can't have that. But
okay, well, you try to call back. Does that help?
I might. Let me see if it'll work.
Think you call him?
Maybe I can call him. I don't know. I don't know what in the world I've done.
Greg.
I doubt that changed it. I think I still hear that robot in there.
Okay. I'll text. It'll be a long text, but I'll text.
Okay, brother. I appreciate it.
All right. Okay.
All right. He said he's going to send a long text. I could hear him. I don't know what in the world I've done. That's this mixer over here now. I'm going to tell you, this guy, it's too fancy sometimes for me. I'm not high tech enough yet. I'm going to have to get my son-in-law, who's my technology extraordinaire, to help me work that out. But, Greg this year actually was awarded the Alabama Broadcasters Association Broadcaster of the Year award, and he was also at the same time inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And so, what you said about him just a minute ago, I think people don't realize, how special that is right now for Scottsboro, for Jackson County, for all that he's doing. One of these days, when Greg's no longer doing it, everybody's going to really, realize, what they're missing. But they're also going to realize, how good he was at what he did. It's one thing for us to sit here. We know he's a master of his craft. He works very hard to be better. And you think a guy that's been doing it for, 35, 36 years, 40 years, I guess. His entire career has been in the radio business. But he's always gotten better and better and better. I remember one night we were doing a ball game together, and he still remembers the kid's name. I'm not going to call his name, but we talked about it when he was on the podcast back in August. we were playing North Jackson. I'll never forget that. And the kid was bad about pulling up and shooting from half court. Scottsboro was ahead by just a few points, and the kid pulled up, and for just a second, he thought about firing that thing up from about 1.5 feet across the half court line, and he says, he calls his name, says he stops with the ball, he pulls up. If he shoots it from there, I'm gonna choke him. Those are the moments that I remember. We were over in Fort Payne one night doing a game, and I got so into the game. Felt like we were getting hosed by the referees, and I done had the microphone, pulled off the side. I'm standing up and I'm pointing,
Oh yeah.
and Greg's got his hand on me like this, just trying to calm me down. I was so embarrassed. I pulled my headset off. I didn't put my headset back on the rest of the game. I just did the stance and handed it to him to read because I was so ashamed of myself for acting a fool. On the way home, we walked out to I was following him to the car, head down. I was toting all the stuff, hoping he didn't fire me on the way home from a job I didn't get paid for. But, we got in the car, we started home. I said, Greg, I'm sorry, man. This is something I do, but this is your life, and I really wish I would have did better. And man, with this, all the grace, and he's not just my best friend, one of my best friends on the planet, but he's just this is how much he loves what he does. He said, Tater, one thing you got to remember when you're doing this, it's not about you, and it's not about me, and it's not even about those coaches. What we do is about those kids.
Right.
Somewhere, somehow, sometime or another, it's going to happen eventually. Somebody's going to be listening to their grandson or their nephew or maybe even their child. And, they may be on their way out of this world. And this is the last time they'll ever hear their kid's name called out. Somebody they love. This is that kid's 15 minutes of fame. And this is about them. This is when we do it for them.
Yeah.
Man, I tell you, I have taken that I have never forgotten that. That has become part of who I am. It was so powerful in that moment. You know, he wasn't scolding me. He was literally opening his heart up and pulling part of it out and giving it to me.
Right.
And it was an amazing gift.
Yeah.
You know, when you came in here today, we talked about, some things going on here. A lot of what I do, the reason I do it stems from that moment after that ball game. As funny as it was, me losing it and just,
Right.
a lot of other things happened because of that ball game. I stopped being over emotional about sports.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy the game. I root for my team, but I stopped rooting against other teams.
Right.
I don't know how that happened, but that moment did that to me.
Yeah.
I quit getting stupid about college football. I barely even watch college sports anymore. I still like to watch the tournaments and stuff, but I really, really enjoy now. I would rather see a high school basketball game as a college game, and definitely don't want to watch the NBA.
Mm-mm.
But I love watching high school ball.
Yeah.
It does something for me. Greg sent a text. Oh, and he's right. It's long. He said, "Did you also mention about do y'all ever practice in gym?" Yes, we did. We talked about you coming over to apologize.
Yeah, I brought it up. I don't even know what got us on that.
And the next day, he said, after the apology, they beat the snot out of Albertville. I do remember that. Well, the funniest story is the night we played Sardis in the sub-region. The head official knew I was broadcasting, came over before the game and asked me if I wanted him to call any media timeouts. My comment was, "You see that guy over there, over at the Scottsboro bench? If you call a timeout and then tell him it's a media timeout for me, he will have my hide."
Yeah, and we were rolling right then, so
Yeah.
probably would have been a bad deal.
Man, he's done a great job all the way down through the years. He has a fantastic way of lightening the mood when things aren't going so well.
Oh yeah, I can remember. I mean, just after the game, and you're probably not in the best emotional state, especially. I know I probably wasn't most of the time, and when you go in on one of them rants, he's got a pretty good way of calming the moment, getting you back focused, and not letting you show your tail, and that's big for a coach. First thing I told Jason Bowen is, if you want quotes from me, don't make me look stupid.
Yeah.
As soon as you make me look stupid, I'm not telling you anything else. And he's been great too. It's just, you've got guys in that industry. I don't think anywhere around here, but you see on the national media and stuff happened with the Braves about the comment that got out about Harper.
Mm-hmm.
People just trying to get you, all the time. And we're pretty lucky with the guys that we got in this area that they're not those guys. They do it for the right reason. They do it for the kids. And, there's a lot of respect in that from coaches.
Yeah. I always thought, he's taught me a lot about, because Greg would let me go out and do some sometimes. I think I might have even filled in for him when you were still there a time or two. But he, because I love it that much. I became passionate about it because I was around him.
Yeah.
Because he was so passionate about it. I already had a desire to be around it, but I did not know that I was going to be so passionate about helping young people.
Right.
And now I told you before, it's a running joke about what I do bouncing back and forth between the two rival schools. It's just funny. And, I get asked.
And that's a big deal to some people,
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But it is.
It used to be a big deal to me, but it's not anymore.
And, I have the running joke. I didn't know how much about Pisgah that I put in my boys, but that was my rival growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and finally, when we were dating, I was like, "Hey, boys, chill on the Pisgah." Like, Dad's had to tone it down. I need y'all to tone it down a little bit too, and it's just a running joke that we got. and it's all in fun, but you know, the rivalries are real, you know, and I don't think it is as big as it used to be, though, you know. And I think social media plays in part of that. I think NBA's played a part of that, you know, when all these guys going to play in the Big Three and, you know, play with their buddies and all that. And then I guess AAU and travel ball, you know, played a part into that where you don't have that rivalry. Like when I was in school, you didn't really talk to people from Pisgah or Skyline.
Yeah.
You know, that was who you didn't like, and they didn't like you either. So it wasn't like it was personal. It's just the way it was.
Yeah.
And now everybody's playing together. I mean, Ellis is playing with a team out of, you know, Plainview right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get a few comments and snide comments on that, but it's just the culture's changed.
Yeah. I remember, gosh, it ain't been, it's been a long time ago, but it don't seem like it's been that long ago. But I was covering football for the North Jackson Progress, and I got assigned one night to do the section Pisgah game. They played it on a Thursday night, and Mr. Glass asked me to go out there and
What
cover.
year was that? Any idea?
I cannot remember, but I remember this. Jet Stevens was still there at Pisgah, and
See, and he was a section guy, so that was a big game then.
yeah, and a fight. I mean, it was Pisgah. It seemed like, you know, both teams were really good, and Pisgah felt like they were getting hosed by the officials.
Right.
And I mean, down everybody came. It got so bad that the officials went to the two resource officers that were at the game and said, "You guys might want to think about calling in some help."
Yeah. Wow.
Because as all the reserves and all the available county officers and surrounding area officers started to arrive on the scene, fans were already working their way down. I mean, they had the whole, you know, outside of the fence. They were all standing, and they were all sort of just already making their way towards the end zone. I thought, oh boy, I was hunting a spot to go because I knew that it was just a fraction, just a hair away from being, you know, in a brawl for all.
Yeah.
Those dudes were serious, man, and it went from being. I mean, I was afraid for the officials. Which brings me to kind of my last thing, because, man, believe it or not, we've been on this thing an hour and 40 minutes. Officials. We joke about them.
Love them all.
Yeah, there you, my man. My man. Greg also said that he wanted you to know that he always enjoyed working with you, and he thinks the world of you. And he already said all that stuff about you too, Greg, but he likes me better. So I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It ain't true. But literally, you know, we're kind of moving into a day where stuff like that has affected us negatively.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had any experience with it, but I know other schools are experiencing it. They're having to cancel a lot of their games.
Right.
Simply because they don't have.
Yeah, and we were, you know, me and, of course, I've talked to some older coaches and stuff about, you know, we've talked about officiating and stuff and how they coached back then and stuff. And I don't know if social media has not pushed that. You know what I mean? Because now they're public eye and everything's on not just them, but us and the players and stuff. I mean, I've heard stories. Mr. Herron, who was assistant principal for years, and now he's a principal at Bryant, telling stories about when he was at Plainview and they'd play Sylvania and stuff like that. And the stuff the coaches would do to the referees and stuff, and it'd be like, you get put in jail for stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, and we are getting to that time where we're not replacing these guys that are going out. And you worry about my boys, you know, down the road. If they're not the game of the week, will they get to play?
Yeah.
You know, so it's really probably crisis point, just talking to some of those guys. And, I mean, we talked to a few over the summer, and they was talking about doing like 70 games. You know,
Golly.
it's just like
That's
it's
crazy.
just unbelievable amount of games.
That's crazy.
You know?
I know last year I saw at Scottsboro they did. Some of those guys would come in and they instead of doing 3 guys at a time, 3 officials for each game, they would just pare down to 2
Yeah.
and just swap.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
they do, each one would do a game, JV game, and then 2 of them would do the girls, 2 of them would do the boys. And I thought to myself, golly, man, this is
Yeah.
it's bare knuckles here. I mean, it's getting rough.
You know,
But-
me and the girls, Coach Ford and Coach Hart, when he was there, we talked about if they would leave us and let us 3 call varsity games, and
Yeah.
we just quit coaching and go referee.
Yeah.
Because that way, when you're done, you're done. You ain't got to worry
Right.
about it no more. You ain't got to go to practice the next day and get
Yeah.
on somebody and
Right.
worry about grades and worry about all the extra that you got to do.
I heard that. It sounds like I'm having some kind of electrical surge here or something. I told you something always goes wrong.
You jinxed it.
It never fails. And tonight said nothing was going wrong. So things are going wrong. Well, Coach, I appreciate you being on. Next year when I come back, let me turn this up just a second. Next year when I come back for the podcast, I'm gonna start back in the spring. I'm gonna try to do some of these in do-overs, and we're gonna do them a little bit different. We're gonna talk about just a lot of different things, but to get a little more in depth about leadership styles, you know, good solid just advice, things like that. If you'd like to come back on, I would love to have you, back on the show next
enjoyed
year.
it. A lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll wait till basketball season's over before I hit you.
Even better.
But I do appreciate you taking time to come out and be with us. Appreciate all you guys that have watched and tuned in. And I'm going to fix this phone issue before next week so we can have some live callers. But I appreciate all of you. Thank you guys for tuning us in, for sticking it out with us. I love doing this, and it's a lot of fun. I hope you get as much out of it as I do. So until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you, be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. God bless y'all. Tune in next week and for the next edition of the Meet at the Creek podcast. Until then.
And thank you guys. Look at her.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to figure out all of this fancy stuff one of these days and get it right. Coach, thanks again, man. It's been fun. Thank you guys for tuning us in for the Meet at the Creek. Thank you for meeting us at the Creek, and we hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you have questions or comments you'd like for us to read, send those to mudcreekpastor@gmail.com. Again, that's mudcreekpastor@gmail.com. Thank you for meeting us at the Creek, and we'll see you next time.